Good morning. During the declared emergency, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will be automatically muted on entry, and when your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. With us today, the committee members we have today, all appearing virtually, are Mr. Don Taylor, Sophia Ruddock, Neil Palmer, and Stan Kumarik. Welcome. My name is Michael Clark, and I'm your chair today. Any registered participants will be participating by audio only, and we ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone who wishes to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, as Committee of Adjustment and TLAB, in the event of an appeal, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you don't agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, LPAT. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure is as follows. We basically go in order, but as we do in the non-virtual world back in the old days, we're going to deal with the deferral requests at the outset today, so that those persons don't have to stay on the line and they can get on with their day. So we'll call each item in the order, and when an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will only proceed with a presentation if required by committee members, and if desired, the committee may ask, when the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they require to speak to the committee, and the committee may ask questions or take the matter into the committee for decisions. At the end of every speaker's deputations, the committee members may have questions. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, is given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and we will comment when you're approaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please start off by clearly stating your name and address for the record, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. Where a matter is contested and there are presentations, the applicant or agent proceeds first and makes a presentation to the committee. Please note the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals today. The committee may decide to defer the application that's being substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is both accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. I think we now have to do, are there any files to be, I think we have one file noted to be closed, but that has already been closed. Mr. Carvalina, 62 Edenvale Crescent.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's been taken care of by staff.
Okay, does anyone have any conflicts of the matters before us, declare staff or panel members on this morning's agenda? Okay, just to continue on with the opening remarks, I was missing the last page. So after the speaker speaks, neighbors either in support or opposed to the application, typically opposed, will also be given a chance to address the committee for a maximum of 5 minutes. And after all the other speakers with concerns or questions or in opposition have spoken, the applicant is given a further 5 minutes to rebut only those issues that were raised by the neighbors, not to introduce new evidence, but only to respond and answer the questions or concerns raised by the speakers in their presentations. At that point, the matter is taken into the committee for a decision. I believe we also have to confirm the minutes of the last meeting. That was February 23rd. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes, please? Mr. Taylor?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the previous minutes.
Good, thank you. And the seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion? Ms. Reddick? Thank you. By the way, I realize there's like a 2-second delay, so I'm going to have to slow down and take that into consideration, that there's a bit of a 2-second delay on the transmission. So we have a motion. All in favor? Okay, unanimously approved. Okay, so deferral requests. We're going to deal with those first today. The first item, and I believe it's a request by both planning and by the applicant to defer, is item number 5, 8 Edgehill Road. And on that application, we have registered as speakers Mark McConville, agent, as well as the neighbor John Wessinger at 6 Edgehill, right next door.
Good morning, it's Mark McConville with Humphreys Planning Group. We're requesting a deferral because based on discussions with planning, we have revised our proposal in a number of ways. And because of that, a revised notice had to be issued. So we're asking to be put on the next available Committee of Adjustment hearing, and the notices have already gone out for that March 23rd meeting.
Okay, are the neighbors, I know there's 11 letters of opposition. There's also some letters from some people withdrawing previous support letters that they had given an endorsement on based on information that they weren't aware of. So I guess you're going to have to clean that all up. So we only have one neighbor present registered to speak. Mr. Wessinger?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I spoke with Mr. Wessinger this morning. He won't be joining us on the WebEx meeting.
Okay.
I told him that it'll be back on the 23rd.
Okay, so he's aware. Okay, so committee members, motion to defer to the specific March 23rd hearing date.
I'll move to defer so that the applicant can process with planning.
Thank you, Mr. Kamarick. Seconder for that, Ms. Reddick. All in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred.
Thank you.
Okay, the next matter to be, again, a request by planning and by the applicant is item number 6, 27 Meadowbank Road. We have one person registered, the agent Julie Odansky.
Hi, yeah, it's Peter Giordano. I'm here to speak on as the authorized agent for that, and I'm from David Small Designs, same company as Julie, 1405 Cornwall Road in Oakville.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Giordano. So this, can you just explain why this matter is why the deferral request here?
Yeah, we were in contact with the planner, and he had some concerns with a couple of our variances. We're in the process of modifying our designs to address those concerns.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, motion to defer, please. And this is to a specific date, Mr. Carvalino, or no?
No, Mr. Chair, it's the next available hearing.
Okay. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll move for deferral to enable revisions to the proposal.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion.
I will second.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. All in favor? Okay, matter is deferred. Next deferred item is 23 GRENVIEW Boulevard North, item number 12. I believe this was a notice issue, staff error, so it's being put on the next meeting, March the 23rd, at no cost to the applicant. And that's item number 12. We have registered to speak on this item. Zihong Xia agent, as well as the neighbor at 22 Wendover Road.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we do not have the neighbor. We do have John Coulmone presenting the application.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Colmone of Colmone and Associates Limited. I'm here to speak on this matter.
Okay.
The reason for the request for deferral is due to a revised public hearing notice that was sent out, I guess, just recently, and therefore we're requesting deferral.
Okay, to correct that, I understand the one posted was different than the one delivered to the neighbors. So they didn't have the most accurate package.
That's right.
Members, motion to defer. And this is to the specific date of March 23rd.
I'll move a motion to defer so that proper notice can be sent.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Seconder for that. Ms. Ruddick, all in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred to March the 23rd.
Sorry, Chair, I think you said Mr. Palmer moved the motion. I believe it was Mr. Kamarick.
Oh, sorry, I was looking down. You sound alike sometimes. So that's, I stand
All right,
corrected. Okay, thank you, Mr. Palmer. Okay, the last item to be deferred on the morning agenda is item number 17, 21 BLAIR ATHOL Crescent. And registered to speak on this is Julie Odansky, agent, and the neighbor at 16, BLAIR ATHOL.
Yes, and again, sorry, it's Peter Giordano, David Small Designs, the authorized agent on that. I apologize for that. And we're here to request deferral on this. We had involved discussions with planning staff as well, quite simple revisions. We've already undertaken the revisions, reissued the drawings to the zoning examiner and a planner, but we couldn't get that information back, or the application had already been circulated to local residents. So we've asked for a deferral so that we could recirculate the information.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant, or is someone ready to make a motion? And that's just the next available date. That's not to a specific date.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we do have Enrico Asta on the line.
Oh, right, we have the next door neighbor. The other one's deferral requests, the neighbors weren't present, but the neighbor is present on this one. I apologize for that. Mr. Asta?
Yes, hi.
Hi, sir. Sir, you just heard the explanation that this matter is the applicant is making changes. I don't know if you're aware of those. There will be recirculation. And I see you're located across the street. So are you just on the issue of the deferral? The applicant is going to be making changes, which he says he's already made. I don't know if you can check online or somehow see those changes. And you'll be re-notified and have a chance to deal with this when it's brought back on an agenda.
Okay, great.
Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to state at this point?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, motion to defer. Mr. Taylor, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move for deferral to enable changes to be made to the proposal.
Thank you. Seconder for that. Mr. Kamarick, all in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred. Okay, and only the last, housekeeping matter to mention on the morning agenda, we're going to now go through in order, whether contested or non-contested. In the virtual world, we just go in order. But item number 15, the agent, Mr. Rosa, has asked that we hold that matter to the last item on the morning agenda, as he has another commitment this morning. So that matter will be held to the end of the agenda. Okay. So unless there's anything else preliminary to deal with, we can, as soon as I get my computer up, we can proceed with the first item, item number 1, 6 BENSTROW Avenue. And just bear with me 1 second. It's an application to construct a second-story addition, a two-story south side addition, a new carport, and a new front porch and a rear deck. There are 4 variances, and transportation has no objection. We did just receive a new planning justification report just this morning. I don't know if members have that as well or they don't. So it's the planning just came in, I believe, this morning, so it's technically late arriving, but it's a planning justification report. TRCA has no objection, and there's a condition of approval being requested by planning staff that in the event of approval, the second-story platform be reduced from 12 square meters to 10 square meters. Registered to speak is Peter Vozikas, the agent, and as well as the next door neighbor at 8 BENSTROW. Mr. Vozikas, welcome.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Chairman, committee members, and staff. For the record, I am Peter Vazikas of Empire Design Company, here to represent for the owners of 6 BENSTROW Avenue for the application before us today. Obviously, you have not had a chance to review the justification report. That document did arrive somewhat late, but it's something I can reiterate today in a short form version for you. I'm sure you've had the opportunity to review the proposed site plan and architectural drawings. Based on these drawings, we feel the proposed variances are minor in nature and seek relief from the committee. Some of the drawbacks about this property are the existing grade conditions and setbacks. The property has an adverse slope condition where the land rises upwards towards the rear of the lot. The existing grade condition reflects on the average height and massing of the building. The reason we decided to go with the lower pitch roof line is not to deprive the adjacent neighbors from sunlight. Predating the current bylaws, this house was constructed with minimal side yard setbacks, whereas now the setback requirement is more in keeping with the lot sizing capabilities to sustain the house correctly on the lot. The purpose of the deck serves 2 uses. One is to enhance the beauty of the home, as many other homes within close vicinity also do, and to provide some shelter for the parked vehicles below. Because there is only room for a 1-car garage on this property, we have created somewhat of a carport, or portico as I call it, to reduce any inclement weather conditions affecting the owner's vehicles. Now, considering the planner's recommendation to reduce the area of the upper deck to a maximum of 10 square meters, we are hoping to comply with this request by adjusting the railing locations in order to reduce that area to that amount. But we would prefer to retain the extended overhang beyond the railings in order to provide some adequate cover to the vehicles below. As for the front porch,
So
this is
sorry, just
basically
to
a
interject there. So are you saying then you would need the 12 square meters in order to do that?
No. The 12 square meters we don't need for the upper deck.
Okay,
I
so
would
you're
reduce-
okay with planning's recommendation of 10 meters? It sounds like you would, the way they worded it, you would already agree to that perhaps?
Yes, we agree to the 10 square meters. We're just requesting a little bit extra overhang of the roof beyond the railings in order to protect the vehicles below, if that's.
If it's not related to a variance and doesn't trigger a variance, then I guess you can go ahead and do that, correct? And yeah, we can't comment on that, but you know, what's before us is what's before us. If you can get that with your, without triggering any further variances, and you still comply with the 10 square meters, assuming that's what committee members are going to approve, then you can do what you want to do if it doesn't trigger any more variances.
Then my best option would be to comply with the 10 square meters and then deal with the planner to see if I can extend the overhang further.
Like I said, if it doesn't trigger any further variances, then I assume you can do that, but you can deal with planning.
Yes.
on that. Okay, so if there's anything else you'd like to add, let's hear from the neighbors' concerns, and you'll have a chance to respond. I don't know if you've consulted with the neighbors or not. So,
I have not.
Okay, so let's hear from Mr. Nanu at 8 BENSTROW right next door.
Yes, good morning, Chairman. Good morning, committee members and everybody else.
Just start off by stating your
the
name. I
application-
know it seems redundant, but can you just start by stating your name and your address, please?
It's my name is Alexandru Nanu, and the address is 8 BENSTROW Avenue. I am the neighbor next door on the south property line of 6 BENSTROW Avenue. Now, this this development is way too big for the lot. I forwarded the committee my objection already regarding the property at 6 BENSTROW Avenue. Further studying made me realize that application for adjustment and the zoning notice infringe on professional and procedural ethics, and this would impede on any fair decision of the Committee of Adjustment. First, the application does not disclose that the building has a half basement, the rest being crawl space. It does not disclose the foundation to support the beams for the new first floor, and does not disclose the need for the new walls or wall reinforcement.
Yes, sir. You know what? Can you try to slow down a bit? Just slow down a bit so we can follow what you're saying.
Yes. All these omissions are would otherwise would bring in question the lawful existing of the building under the provision of section 510(1)(10)(4), interpretation of substantial demolition. What I'm saying is that property needs substantial demolition in order to be redone. Many of the modifications that were asked in the application are listed under the wrong section, and altogether are misrepresenting a two-story roofed extension of the building as being a platform and confusing the matters. This so-called platform in of the carport, it's against the zoning regulation. The applicant chose not to be specific neither about the structure location in the side yard, which will encroach on the side property line setback, nor that the structure will be located in the driveway leading to the garage. In fact, the applicant did not consider any of the provision of the zoning bylaw when he designed the building, practically asking the committee to bend the bylaw provision to fit the building. He didn't sign the drawings, so he didn't involve his responsibility by stamping the drawings. The documentation attached to the application contains voluntary errors, misleading information, misrepresentation, and purposely confusing terminology, non-compliant with the trade, such as the site plan is making a future reserve for another second addition beside this roof two-story structure, which is called in the documents carport or second floor platform. The second floor addition is not presented in the application. Once the zoning certificate is issued, it would be legal to be installed as a third structure on the side yard. The basement area in the table is miscalculated. Now, the basement plans, the drawings, are not identifying the new foundation and the structure in the basement, and is not identifying the type and material of construction of the crawl space walls and foundation. The partition wall, it's a 10-inch, shown in the drawing, it's a 10-inch poured concrete wall. If the foundation would be continuous, which the walls of the foundation would be continuous and the same nature, that partition wall, or that wall, it wouldn't be a 10-inch concrete wall, it would be a partition wall. The structure over the driveway is designated as carport in the drawing, despite the common knowledge of what a carport is, and the legislation specifically does not permit a platform or anything in top of a carport. On the other hand, the legislation does not permit a carport in front of the garage either. In the application, this is designated as a platform, while in the drawings it's designated as carport. Second, the zoning building code examiner, the zoning notice, it has so many mistakes and omission, and the zoning building code examiner missed to identify the non-compliance of the application submittal, missed to identify the carport mentioned in the drawing as object of zoning regulation. The carport is regulated. Missed to identify the bylaw requirements for the so-called platform. Missed to identify the setbacks requirement for the side property line. Missed all the inconsistency in the documentation presented with the application.
Mr. Nanu, can you please wrap up, because you're at 5 minutes? Please wrap up.
Yeah, okay.
We have, you've been following, we have your 3-page letter that you sent into the committee.
Yeah, okay. In conclusion, I'm asking the Committee of Adjustment to reject the application with all the attached documentation in its entirety. I'm also asking the committee to enforce the bylaw provision so that the future development at 6 BENSTROW Avenue will comply with the provision of the zoning bylaw and building code. And last, I would like to see that the Committee of Adjustment opening an investigation in this matter or refer the matter as presented above to the proper authority because there's so many missings on that are not acceptable. Thank you so much for the attention.
Thank you, Mr. Nanu. Let's, Mr. Vozikas, can you have an opportunity to respond to what's been raised by the speaker? We also have his 3-page letter dated March the 1st, which I'm sure you've had an opportunity to review in addition to hearing his submissions just now.
Yes, Mr. Nano does have quite in-depth knowledge of the building code and other matters related to it. Keep in mind that the drawings we had provided are preliminary drawings, therefore they were not signed or stamped. They have not been reviewed by a structural engineer as of yet because we are obviously not ready for a building permit. We had to get through this stage first. The zoning examiner did an adequate job in identifying all the variances required. That's why we're here today. As for the carport, that's not going to be an extended addition. That's going to remain as shown on the drawings. The preliminary drawings show that the floor level is raised to increase the height of that crawl space. That was clearly identified on the drawings. So based on everything that I provided, there is no untruth. It's all visible and relevant to this application.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, and I didn't ask you after Mr. Nanu, do you have any questions for either Mr. Vozikas, the agent, or for the neighbor at 8 BENSTROW, based on his letter and his submissions here this morning? Okay, and if no one does have any questions, is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Don.
Yes, Don Taylor, I'm prepared to move approval of all 4 variances as proposed. I'm not inclined to adjust the size of the rear platform because I'm just not comfortable that the applicant's agent will be successful in negotiating keeping the deck size and recessing the railing. I don't know for sure, but my suspicion or concern is that may be a no-go. So I'm content to leave the variance request as it is for 12 square meters on that rear deck. I find the variances in keeping with the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval. And I'd just like to make a cautionary remark here. Is the agent aware that the TRCA permit expires on April 16th this year?
Yes, we are aware of that, and we're trying to expedite this as quickly as we can. We might have to renew if possible.
Okay, thanks. So my motion will stand as presented, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for that well-reasoned motion, and I take it the extra 2 square meters is almost not perceptible in the difference from that, and I agree that's a very cautionary thing because of the issue that we've just heard. Seconded for Mr. Taylor's motion.
I'll second Neil Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. All in favor? Okay, we have unanimous approval. Thank you, neighbor, and thank you, agent. Okay, we'll move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next application, which is item number 2, 18 Netherly Drive. It's an application to construct a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling, a 2-story north side addition with an attached garage, and a covered front and rear porches. There are 5 variances. We have revised plans and a revised zoning notice. And planning is requesting, in the event of approval, a condition of approval to be built as constructed as illustrated, the new catchphrase, in accordance with the architectural plans dated February 26, as it relates to the setback. And we also have received this morning, further communication with sort of 6 signatures on application and that they're in general support, signed by 6 area neighbors. And we only have one speaker registered, the agent Kyle Kadra.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Can you please state your name and address just formally for the record?
Kyle Kadra, KBK Architects, Inc.
Thank you. Sir, I don't believe we need a presentation on this application. However, you have the opportunity. Oh, yes, we have the revised plans. Perhaps you'd like to walk us through the revised plans. They highlighted up on the screen the revised zoning notice to show the changes you've made. If you'd like
Yes,
to walk
Mr.
us
Chair.
through that.
For sure, Mr. Chair. So, based on concerns from the planning department, we had an enclosed front porch, which increased the floor space index at that time and the front yard setback. So that was eliminated and reduced the floor space index from 0.57 to 0.52 and eliminated the front yard setback. We also reduced the side addition width a little bit, and that resulted in furthermore decreasing the coverage to 40.3% from 43.5%. The only variance that remains as is the soffit height from the old bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Kadra? Is someone ready to make a motion? And we have the planning condition.
Just a question. So the revised plans are dated February 26th, is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct, Mr.
Okay. Based on that, I'd be willing to move a motion for approval. I believe meets the 4 tests with the planning condition that it be built substantially in accordance with the plans, with the revised plans as submitted on February 26th, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Komorik. Seconder for that motion.
Sophia Reddick, I second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Reddick. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Next application is item number 3. Where's the address here? Oh, 55B TRUEMAN. This is an application to construct a patio cover in the rear yard. There is one variance, being the lot coverage. And planning has a condition of approval, again, to construct as illustrated on the site plan that relates to the proposed lot coverage, which includes the proposed patio cover. So I guess they want to ensure that you don't take that patio cover and add it to the house instead. And we have registered as this, only the agent, Ronald Hirlalal. Is the agent on the line?
Hello? Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Good morning. I've just introduced the application. There's no one here with no letters of opposition or, so I don't believe we need a presentation. So you're okay with the suggested condition, but tying it to the architectural plans? In
Just
terms
a second,
of
can you clarify? So the condition was not to have it attached to the house?
sorry, you want to speak up? I can't make that out, what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. Hi, sorry. Can you please clarify what
That's
the
a lot
condition
better.
was?
That's a lot better.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, I just want to request for clarification on what the condition was.
The condition is that the planning department would like, in the event of an approval, that what you're doing be constructed as illustrated on the site plan on file November 26, 2020, as it relates to the proposed lot coverage, which includes the proposed rear patio cover. And that's as set out in the report dated February the 25th.
Okay, yeah, no, that's understood.
Okay, so unless you'd like to add something and let the committee members know, I don't think we need a presentation, but you have the right to let us know anything other than asking to have that clarified. Otherwise, we'll see if committee members have any questions for you, or if not, if someone's ready to make a motion.
Oh, I'm okay with everything. That's fine.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for the agent?
Neil Palmer, question. So the planning recommendation is for plans dated November 26th. And it appears the plans that we have are dated September 24th. So I just want clarification that the September 24th plans that we have are the ones that we're approving.
Yeah, that was that date, I guess, was when the drawing was made, as opposed to when it was submitted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps Mr. Carvini, you can clarify, but I think what happens is they usually do it as a date stamp. So not the date of the plans, but the date of when it was received by is stamped on the drawings as received.
Or uploaded into our system.
Okay. So there's just good to clarify. There's no confusion between two different sets of plans that we're not sure what we're tying it to. So good question. Okay. Any further questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
If there's no further questions, I'll make a recommendation that we approve the minor variance as requested, meeting the 4 tests in the Planning Act and being minor in nature.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Palmer. Seconded for Mr. Palmer's motion. Mr. Taylor, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would second the motion with a friendly amendment to include a condition that the proposed development shall be constructed as illustrated on the site plan submitted November 26th, 2020, as it relates to the proposed lot coverage, which includes the proposed rear patio cover.
I think Mr. Palmer had already included that, but that's.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Might as well.
I didn't hear that.
Is that correct, Mr. Palmer?
I didn't hear that. Sorry, Neil.
That's all right. Thank you.
Okay. Better to be sure. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Okay, unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Herlau.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our next
Take care.
application is item number 4, 340 Royal York Road. It's an application to construct a new accessible drop-off areas, or new, plural, 2 new accessible drop-off areas along the Newcastle Street frontage and 2 new accessible parking spaces along the Newcastle Street and Kenny Avenue frontage. That results in 1 variance, deficiency of 3 parking spots, 77 required, 74 provided. We have a cover letter, we have transportation indicating they have no objection, and we have opposition from 28 Kenny on behalf of 4 neighbors. And registered to speak on this application is Rob Hewitt, the agent. No one else registered to speak.
Good morning. This is Rob Hewitt. I'm with Susan Spiegel Architect. I just have I think the cover letter says most of my points. I'd just like to point out that in rereading the letter from Transportation Services, they make an interesting point that the variance indicated refers to the old Mimico zoning bylaw, and they point out that it's not a variance issue with the new law that applies to new developments. So I'm short 3 spots from the law, the old law, and the existing condition is deficient. We're at 75 right now. So our proposal would remove 1. We would be 3 short from the old bylaw, but we are adding. Yeah.
So you still, I guess, for some reason, the old bylaw is still showing, so you technically need that variance because otherwise you wouldn't even have had to come here, correct, Mr. Secretary Treasurer?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so it's a good point to point out that under the current bylaw, you actually comply. And I guess you've read the objection letters. We don't have anyone here, but we do have those objection letters before the committee.
We've read the letters, and the client, they've been forwarded to the client. They've read them as well. I don't really have any comments other than, we've noted them, but we're not prepared to reorganize the site as they've suggested. And the only other point I would just add is that we haven't consulted with them specifically, but the residents of the building have been consulted. It's a seniors residence. There's some supported living there. So the needs for we feel that the 2 added barrier-free parking spots and the 2 wheel trans drop-off areas are more significant than losing a spot.
Correct. Okay, thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Huot, or is someone ready to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, John Taylor, I have a question. Sir, are you aware of the condition requested by Urban Forestry? Their condition
Yeah.
number 2?
Yes, yeah. There are trees on the property. We have no issues with getting an arborist and obtaining a tree permit. That's very reasonable.
Okay. On that basis, Mr. Chair, I find the variance to be in keeping with the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval subject to Urban Forestry condition number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconded for Mr. Taylor's motion. Mr. Kamerick, all in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Huot.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next application is item number 5, 8 Edgehill Road. Oh, no, that was deferred. Number 6 was deferred, so we'll move over to item number 7. And number 7 is 1538th Street.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Chair
Yeah,
and committee members.
Just want to hang on a second, please. Okay. Yeah, we have a number of speakers on this one. So the item number 7 is 1538th Street. It's an application to construct a 2-story side addition, a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling, an attached garage, and a new front porch. We have 6 variances. We have a previous Committee of Adjustment application in 2018 that was refused for a new detached dwelling. We have an arborist report, 2 cover letters. We have the Long Branch checklist, and planning is requesting a refusal of the application. They say it presents as a 3-story, which does not is not consistent with the prevailing character, and Urban Forestry is also requesting a denial of the application. Councillor Grimes also supports the planning refusal recommendation. Okay, so that's basically the
Chairman.
information we have.
Chairman Neil Palmer here. Just before the applicant starts, they've submitted a letter dated March 2nd. So maybe they could just clarify what exactly they're asking, whether they're revising any of the variances in the notice, and just clarifying what they're asking for.
Okay, so
With their presentation, if they could do that.
yes, no, well, we have in addition to the applicant, we have several other speakers, including the Long Branch Neighborhood Association, the neighbor of 42 Ash Crescent, and the neighbor at also the tree canopy representative from the Long Branch, as well as, well, we're not going to have 3 speakers from Long Branch. We also have Christine Mercado registered, but we're not having 3 members speak from the Long Branch on a 43 application day. So again, I presented that, and again, when we hear from the applicant, they can explain what they've covered in their covering letter, please. So the speaker is Mesa Kidder from 2MK Architects. Welcome.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. This application is for interior alterations and additions to an existing single detached unit to create livable, comfortable, and safe house for a family with little kids. I've detailed the design process in a previous letter to the committee dated February 18th. Yes. And most of the design decisions we made is because of low headroom in the basement and also low headroom in the 2nd floor. So the design mainly is to maintain the existing house, and this is because of limited budget for the family. But what they want to create is a comfortable and safe house for the kids, right? So I've listed all the design and reasons for the reasons for the design we are proposing. I understand the planners' concerns regarding the main floor level, but this floor level we are proposing is just to avoid having any tripping hazard for kids. There has been similar cases in the neighborhood with higher main floor level. I have attached them previously to my application. For example, address 739th Street, The first floor level was 2.4 meters above established grade. Address 8 Branch Avenue, the first floor was 2.43 meters above established grade. Address 46 Exmoor Drive, the first floor level was 2.48 meters above established grade. And also, most of the variances we have, other than the main floor level, is because we are maintaining the existing house. And this is, again, because of limited budgets. For example, the front yard setback is because the existing front wall, that's where it is. So we have a variance for the front yard setback. And also the eaves, the roof eaves projecting into the front yard setback is also because of the existing front wall. Also, there have been similar cases in the neighborhood where there were properties with similar type of variances. I've listed them in a previous letter. Address 40 38th Street, address 48 Exmoor Drive, address 65 Enfield Avenue, address 198 Lake Promenade. They have these properties, they have similar variances for front yard setback, FSI, front porch, roof eaves, and front porch. So for the planner's report, in response to planner's concerns and councilor's letter, we are surprised to receive these letters, and we are sorry to know that they are against this house for a family in the neighborhood. But we are proposing to update the design for the main floor and improve the entrance area of the house in relationship to the street. So the entrance lobby will be lowered in our design. I sent an updated design on March 2nd. We are lowering the entrance lobby by 0.4 meters. The elevation of the entrance lobby will be at 1.2 meters only, higher than the established grade. This is to improve the relationship of the entrance to the street and keep it within acceptable bylaw requirements and planning requirements. Hopefully, this will address and resolve issues raised by the planner's comments and report. Drawings indicating this update were sent to the committee in March 3rd.
Okay, do you want to just wrap up, please? Okay.
Yeah.
But are you? This is a response to Mr. Palmer's question. You reviewed your second covering letter? So are you proposing to make changes here today, or are you just explaining the changes that were made?
I've sent a letter on March 3rd to the committee.
Yes.
It was posted on March 3rd, I guess.
Yes.
Or March 4th.
Uh-huh.
It shows the main floor.
But are those different? You sent this letter. I see this letter, March, and there's drawings attached to it, right? March the 2nd.
Just one letter. Just one.
March the 2nd.
March the 3rd.
Okay. So we have the letter dated March the 2nd listed under cover letter 2.
Yes,
But there's also support. First of all, I didn't, when I was mentioning, I had stopped, I mentioned the letters. We also do have 18 letters of no objection.
Yes.
That I didn't mention, and I mentioned the planning and the forestry denial recommendations. But the question is, are these further plans that appear under the letter or after the letter, are these changes that you're suggesting be made? And would those affect the variances before us?
No, those are the effective variances. On March 2nd, those are the effective variances. This letter is because somebody from the neighborhood was suggesting that the variances are not clear. And then I had to clarify, because he said that the drawings we submitted are not clear, where is the addition? So the addition actually is happening only in the rear yard of the house, because the existing house is like an L shape. So my client, what they're doing is that they are squaring off the L shape and making the house like a box. So the addition is only in that corner. The rest is existing. The rest of the house is existing.
Okay.
And most of the existing main level is at the high elevation of the existing living room. That's the existing house. And because this existing living room is at this level, that my client wanted to have the floor all at one level because they have kids and they don't want any tripping hazard for the kids. But now that we received the planner's concerns and then they are recommending refusal, unfortunately. So that's why we are proposing to lower the entrance lobby area.
You can't start proposing things at the hearing today to make any changes.
No, I sent the letters, Mr. Chair.
Well, you didn't. Did
I
you
sent
ask
a
for? You
letter.
can't. Okay. If I said at the outset, you cannot make substantial revisions at the hearing here today. If you had concerns, you should have perhaps asked for a deferral. But the committee will not be entertaining further changes because they're not before us. Mr. Secretary Treasurer, can you weigh in, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, these are significant changes that have not been reviewed adequately by the committee itself or staff. It would be inappropriate to consider the magnitude of these changes at today's hearing.
Okay. And Ms. Catter, we have other speakers here, so we're proceeding on what's before us. So if you wanted to make changes would that affect the variances? The changes you were talking about here earlier here?
Hello. Is this question for me, Mr. Chair?
Yes. You're saying you're showing us plans that things you're prepared to change, but have you changed? Would that affect any of the variances? The variances
this is to
get
improve.
reduced?
Yes, this is to improve the relationship of the entrance lobby with the street in response to the planner's report.
Okay, so how would you haven't told us how the variances were changed. I've advised and staff has confirmed that you cannot make changes here today that are substantial, and that's what you're proposing. So you're proposing to, I think, perhaps change the first floor height, or we have what's before us here today.
Mr. Chair, if the changes result in a better condition, lesser variance,
yes,
then and they're minor changes, it's up to the committee whether or not they wish to deal with it. However, from the description of the changes that the proponent has provided, it does sound significant.
Okay. Committee members, any questions of the applicant before we move on based on what's before us? Okay. So I guess, I don't know, Mr. Carvaline, if this is an appropriate situation to ask the applicant agent if they would request or desire a deferral in order to make changes, or proceed on what's before us?
We can. Yes, Mr. Chair, can we request a deferral so that we can clarify the changes we are suggesting for the main entrance, if that is okay? I really appreciate if you give us a deferral.
Okay, and we do have all the other people on the line, so perhaps you would get in touch with them and send them out the changes. There would be a recirculation, and it would be reviewed by city departments to see if it affects the variances and also if they have any further comments based on those changes. So that's probably the right way to proceed. So committee members, any questions, or would you, in terms of a deferral, I guess should we weigh in and speak to the other neighbors here, or if they're opposed to that? There are three people, three of them from the Long Branch. Perhaps we can hear from one of the Long Branch representatives, as well as the neighbor at 42 Ash Crescent. So let's start off, Mr. Vella at 42 Ash Crescent.
I think it would be okay to have a deferral.
Yes.
And so that the applicant can make the changes and distribute them, and so that we're all talking about the same documents, and we can have the same vision that they have, and then take it from there.
Sure. Where are you in relation? Are you behind? You're located behind the property?
No, I'm up the street.
Okay. Okay, let's hear from someone in the Long Branch. One speaker from Long Branch Neighborhood Association. I don't know if Christine Mercado wants to weigh in.
Hello, Mr. Chair. It's Christine Mercado.
Hello.
You can hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. So in the issue
Yep.
of the deferring this application, what's your position on that?
The LVNA would support deferral. However, we do have concerns with the limits that the applicant might be walking away with, because they're just speaking about one variance that they're proposing, and the objections that that city planning and forestry have put forth are much more substantial than that. So that would be my concern, is that just lowering the front entrance. I have taken notes about the front wall and eaves variance and what they were talking about with that. But with regards to just reducing the front entrance, there's still some substantial forestry conditions, and to make way for a double garage that we have significant concerns about.
Okay, so
But
you
we would
stated for
support
the record
deferral
that,
if they address the application more wholesomely like
so
that.
I guess you've stated on the record that in addition to the first floor height issue, there are other concerns that both planning and the community and perhaps have with respect to this application. So perhaps the applicant can address that in their revisions, knowing full well from reading those communications, including those put in by your organization, and that there is issues with this application.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So committee members, any questions for any of the speakers, or is someone ready to make a motion to defer this application so that it can be revised? Perhaps some consultation and be brought back on a further agenda sometime in the future when they're ready to go.
Sophia Reddick, I'm prepared to make a motion to defer this application to allow the applicant time to clarify the requested revisions.
Thank you, Ms. Reddick. Seconder for that motion. Mr. Kamarick, all in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the next application is item number 8, 2 TALLFOREST Crescent. We have a revised notice. This is an application for a one-story west side addition. To include a new attached garage, and there are 3 variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw. We have supporting material covering letter, and planning has a condition of approval to have it built in accordance as illustrated on the site plan as it relates to the width of the proposed driveway. And we have a petition of no objection signed by 7 people, I believe. We only have one speaker on this application, the agent, Carl Vella, the owner.
Good morning, everyone, Chair and committee members. Would you like a presentation, or do you
I
have
don't
questions?
believe that's necessary. There's no one here with concerns. You've seen the planning report?
Yes, I have.
And you're okay that it be, that relating to the proposed driveway, that it be built, constructed as illustrated on the site plan, submitted February 22nd?
Yes, no issues.
Okay, so let's just see if committee members have any questions for you, or if someone's ready to make a motion on this application.
Yes, Don Taylor, Mr. Chair, I just have a question. Is the applicant aware of an okay with urban forestry condition number 1?
Oh, yes.
Yes, I have, and I've already discussed with them.
Okay, on that basis, Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to move approval. I find the variances requested satisfy the 4 tests under the Planning Act. So move approval subject to urban forestry condition number 1 and the condition requested by the Community Planning Department regarding the proposed development will be constructed as illustrated on the site plan submitted February 22nd, 2021, as it relates to the width of the proposed driveway.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Someone seconded for Mr. Taylor's motion, Ms. Ruddick. All in favor?
Sophia.
Okay, we have unanimous approval. Or, yes, okay, Mr. Kamara had his hand up. Okay, the application is unanimously approved, subject to those conditions for forestry and the planning condition.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
You too. Okay, item number 37 rather, 19th Street. It's an application to construct a new detached garage in the rear yard. There are 5 variances. Transportation has no objection. And we have 340 Kipling Avenue in support. So not much on this application. We have the speaker, one speaker, John Sebenik, the agent. Is Mr. Sebenik
I'm
there?
here. Yes, I am. Good morning, committee.
Yeah, you're coming in very softly.
I'll try to be a little bit more clear. Hopefully this is better.
Oh, that's a little better, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, sir, I don't believe we need a presentation. Is there anything you'd like to advise the committee before I see if anyone has any questions for you? It's very straightforward, no one in opposition. And
yeah, just like
we do have one letter of support, as I mentioned. Yes.
Yeah, I've got one letter of support. I've got also verbal support from 4 neighbors, 35, 39, and 41, in addition to 340, which submitted the letter.
Okay, anyway, we
all I
don't have
wanted to-
anything in opposition, so we can't really rely on
Okay.
oral approvals, but they haven't
All
written any
right, well,
concerns.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add if the committee is.
Yeah, very straightforward, so let's just see if anyone has any questions for you, or if someone's ready to make a
Sure.
motion.
Okay.
Okay. Committee members, any questions for the agent, or is someone ready to make motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion to accept this application. I find it to be minor in nature and consistent with the 4 principles in the Planning Act.
Okay,
I don't believe there's any conditions.
Yeah, there's
Thank
no
you.
conditions on this one. Seconded for Ms. Roddick's motion. Thank you, Mr.
I'll
Kamara.
second.
Okay, I got
Kamara.
Stan beat you to it, so Mr. Kamara.
All right.
All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Sebenik.
committee.
Okay, item number 10 is our next application, 28 CRISCOE Street. This is an application to construct a new detached dwelling. The existing detached garage in the rear yard will be maintained. There are 7 variances, 3D renderings, revised plans, dated March 3rd, revised zoning waiver. We have 7 letters of support, 1 letter of opposition, and planning is still has concerns. There have been changes, but they advised that they still have concerns, and they're recommending refusal of the application, as set out in their February 25th memo. So, and then do we have any urban, we have urban forestry requesting condition number 3. Okay, and I believe, do we have a, that was a last minute report, Mr. Carvalino, I believe?
Yes, it was.
Do we have a last minute report on that one? Or was just the same? Oh yeah, it just says that community planning has viewed the revised materials, is dated March 8th, submitted on March 3rd for the minor variance application, and continued to have concerns with the proposal. Therefore, our previously staff report dated February 25th still stands. Okay, so the agent on this application, and that is the only registered speaker we have, is Richard Papa. Mr. Papa?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Rick Papa. I'm from Architecture for All. I'm the agent and architect for the owner of 28 CRISCOE. So firstly, as you mentioned, I'd like to know if there's a new waiver. It was submitted as a result of consultation with planning after the original application. The revised plans and waiver speak to reductions and the elimination of some variances. The submitted revised plans and waiver reflect all the changes that we are presenting.
Okay, and we have also this neighbor, some issue about the neighbor and something
Right.
about the fence, that you haven't replaced the fence, you took the fence down. That was a letter from that neighbor with pictures.
So it's my understanding that the single opposition letter is not an actual opposition letter as it concerns this project or the variances. They are previous issues, and I believe they've been addressed with the neighbor via a friendly visit.
Okay.
So in effect, there's no opposition to this proposal. And in fact, the opposition.
You're right.
opposition
I
letter
agree.
states-
It's in this first paragraph, he states our properties back onto one another, separated by our shed and cedars, which are in front of a previous fence. Okay, we live on Norval. We don't have any issue with Mr. Mahdi's plans to build a new dwelling. However, concern is in regard to the fence separating our yards. Okay, so you're going to be dealing with that.
Correct.
Otherwise, you said they had a friendly visit, so that's good to know, because they said they previously never met one another. So on the issue of your application, though, how about a presentation in light of the negative planning report? They're stating, notwithstanding the changes, they still have concerns.
Sure, if you could please pull up the submitted material.
So if you'd like to make a brief presentation as to why the committee should approve your application and your variances, rather, notwithstanding the objection from community planning.
Okay, so so the immediate context of,
unless you say, well, what's before us before, if you want to just rather would see, let the committee see if they have any questions for you, but you have the right to make a brief presentation.
Perhaps I'll just make a brief presentation, and then they can follow up with questions. So the context plan shown here shows the location of subject property and highlights the letters of support from neighbors within the 60-meter radius. Highlighted in green are the support letters that were submitted, including the two immediate adjacent neighbors, north and south, which would be the most affected by the proposal. You can go to the second page, please. So the immediate neighbors on the west side of CRISCOE are largely original one-story walk-up homes. The second diagram shows across the street, immediately across the street, showing 2.5 two-story and single-story single-family dwellings. Third page, please. So the top image shows the typical condition at south end of CRISCOE. The bottom left image, 1 street east of the subject property, shows a 3-story project, a semi-detached project. It has a third story, 36 square meter rear terrace. The bottom right image shows a semi-detached development 1 street west of the subject property. And this project has a FSI of 1.2 approximately. Fourth page, please. So the proposal is for a 3-story single-family dwelling. The proposal has a similar footprint to the existing home, is lesser on the south side to accommodate greater vehicular access to the owner and the neighbor at 26 CRISCOE. Third story setback from the rear main wall by 4.2 meters. This was to reduce the GFA and FSI and lessen the impact to neighboring properties via some comments from planning. A portion of the third story setback is a walkout terrace. It's surrounded by a 1.5 meter privacy screen / planter, which is set back from the rear main wall to eliminate completely any overlook concerns or privacy issues with the neighbors. Functionally, the requirements of the home is for a 4-bedroom home via the client, and this is the main driver for the current FSI. Functionally as well, the variance for the main wall height is largely driven by costs associated with the deeper foundation and concerns with undermining the adjacent foundations at the basement. So our consultation with planning, the original proposal was reduced to address some of their concerns. The revised plans provided the planning showed the following. So number 1, the proposed FSI was reduced from 1.1 to 0.99, and that's 198 meters square. Secondly, the area of the rear terrace was reduced from 15.8 to 7.8 square meters. In addition, this terrace was provided with a 1.5 meter privacy screen / planter and setback from the main wall and the side walls to eliminate privacy concerns. Thirdly, the north side setback was increased to the existing home setback. That was requested by planning. And fourth, the third story setback was increased from 3 meters to 4.2 meters. I'll just note, the proposal has gained the support of 6 neighbors, including both adjacent properties. Unfortunately, despite these changes, we were unable to obtain support from planning. So the next page, please. These diagrams just illustrate how the rear terrace modifications have reduced or eliminated privacy concerns. The 3 diagrams here show, this diagram shows a figure that's 6 foot tall at the extremity of the terrace. You can go to the next page. So the 3 diagrams shown here present viewing angles from the immediate neighboring properties and a raised second story view from the neighbors at the rear. As shown, the 6 foot figure cannot be seen in any of these views. So this eliminates overlook concerns and privacy issues completely. The next page.
Would you like to wrap up, please? Because you're at 5 minutes.
Sure. So these 2 diagrams just show the revised setbacks and the footprint of the planter at the rear terrace. And the last page, sorry, the next page after that. I'll just reiterate that there are no objections to the proposal, and the applicant has sought to gain the support of neighbors. We believe this proposal and the variance is sought in the application are within the context of neighborhood and minor in nature.
Okay, thank you, sir. So interesting application where the neighbors don't seem to have any concerns. The planning still has.
Correct. Yes.
Committee members, any questions for Mr. Papa? And if there's no questions, is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm very supportive of the comments that we have on file with the planning department. And I don't believe that the revisions that have been made subsequently address their main issues about massing. So I don't believe that the application meets any of the tests under the Planning Act, and my motion would be to refuse the application.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Is there a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion? Ms. Ruddick? Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, the application is unanimously refused. Thank you, Mr. Papa.
Thank you.
Okay, our next application is item number 11, 10 ROBINHOOD Road. It's an application to legalize and maintain the existing landscaping and driveway. There are 4 variances. There's an order to comply, a previous decision of committee. We have 3 opposition letters, letter of support, and we have a previous decision dated May 4th, 2017 about this property. This is a corner property, and we have the neighbors at 9, 7, and 18 opposed, 3 opposition letters. We also have a Tarian letter with the residential landscape assessment. Okay, and registered to speak on this application is Mary Flynn Guglietti as agent for the applicant, as well as the neighbors at 10 ROBINHOOD, 18, 7, 9, and 8. So we have 5 neighbors and 1 applicant, or the agent.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ms. Flynn Guglietti. How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I am here on behalf of the owners of the property, and will be making the presentation. You did note that a representative from number 10 was here as well. That is my client, Mr. Carlin.
Okay, so you have your client.
So-
Sorry. So there's only, I guess, 3 neighbors.
That is
9,
correct,
7,
sir. And you did,
18. Yes, and we do have your cover letter, which I don't know if I mentioned. We have your 4-page letter.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on my cover letter, but I would draw it to the attention of the committee. It does give some of the historical background, and as well, it does go through the 4 tests under Section 45(1) of the Planning Act. As you noted, sir, the property is a corner lot, and it's located at the intersection of Cudworth Place and Robinhood Place. And you also mentioned the previous application that was approved by the Committee of Adjustment for the construction of the new 2-story house with the 2-car garage. The house was completed, the landscaping was then undertaken, and it was after the landscaping was completed, in order to comply, was provided to my client, who immediately took steps to rectify the situation by undertaking an appropriate survey and submitting it to the zoning examiner, which resulted in 4 variances that are requested, all of which relate to the soft landscaping. Now, we have had an opportunity to review both the letters in support. You'll note that there are 2 letters of support, one from Leah and Andrew Knoll at 8 Cudworth Place, and also from Katrina Coley at 14 Robinhood, both of whom indicate that they are very pleased with the landscaping. They think that it does fit into the character of the neighborhood, which of course is one of the tests under the official plan, that it's tastefully done and aesthetically pleasing. In reviewing the letters of concern, I did note that all of them talked about the increase in potential flooding and overburdening the stormwater system for the city. So what our client undertook, and if I could ask the committee to refer to the letter dated August 20th, 2020 from Safe Tech Environmental Reports, my client did undertake to retain an engineer to attend at the property back in August. Thank you very much. That is the appropriate letter. And so the purpose of the letter, as you will see, is that they were commissioned to attend at the property, and this was after the landscaping was done, in order to undertake evaluation of the current landscaping in terms of its ability to manage the stormwater by limiting the volume of runoff to the city's sewer and adjacent properties. So he talks about his site observations, which you'll note start at section 2.0, and he has a number of pictures that are attached to his report, wherein he does explain what he has looked at and also his conclusions with respect to the landscaping that's been undertaken. And if I could just briefly summarize, all of the landscaping, or what they call the hard landscaping, and the variances relate to having more hard landscaping than one is supposed to. The type of materials that were used were permeable paving materials, and they were used throughout to minimize specifically the surface runoff. These pavers, and it's the conclusion of Safe Tech, significantly reduce runoff volumes. They reduce the erosive power of stormwater entering the adjacent properties, as well as the city's infrastructure. He concludes that there is ample grass, trees, and mulch. He also concluded that the patio is buffered by mulch gardens, and therefore the patio does not directly abut the property line. And so in his conclusion, he concludes that the permeable pavers, together with the soft landscaping that is located on the property, does not negatively impact the stormwater management and will not create any problems for the neighbors, although the neighbors did raise that as a main issue. Also, the issue of safety was raised. I believe that was by the owners, David and Margaret Congram at 18 Robinhood. And part of the examination by the zoning examination was with respect to the fence, and there are no variances required with the fence. It is a corner property, and as a result of being a corner property, there are challenges with respect to what you would call your typical front yard, what's deemed to be the front yard, and maintaining the amount of soft landscaping that is required. I submit to you that the landscaping is aesthetically pleasing. It does meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, Generally complies with the official plan in terms of respecting and reinforcing the character of the neighborhood. It is compatible with the neighborhood. The variants requested are generally in compliance with the zoning bylaw. They are in fact minor and they create a desirable development for the property. I did note, sir, that you mentioned the 3 objection letters, but you also mentioned another piece of correspondence, and I have been checking, and I'm not sure what that would be, sir, because I'm not aware that there was anything else on the
Sorry,
file.
what, yeah, no, I mentioned that we had some objection letter, or we have objection letters, something about Tarion letter, or was that from, did I mention something from another application?
Yeah, you mentioned the Tarion letter. I'm not aware of what that
Okay.
is, sir. So
Okay, so
if you
maybe
could,
I found something that didn't exist, so. Just want to note, so we do have these, in addition to your client being available for questioning, we do have the neighbors at 18, 7, 9, and 8. 8 would seem to be the only one that's sort of directly affected. The others are quite a ways down or across the street, but I guess it's sort of a neighborhood concern rather than a direct concern. So let's hear from the speakers. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Flynn Guglietti before we do that? Okay, as you stated, they got their variances. This is just additional landscape variances that's accrued from that. So other speakers, David Congram at 18.
Hello?
Hello,
Can you
sir.
hear me?
Yep.
My name is David Congram, and I'm the neighbor at 18 Robinhood Road.
Yes,
And
and
I've
sir, we
been
do
in-
have your letter dated March the 2nd.
So I won't review my letter in any more further detail. I've assumed everyone's been able to read it. But clearly we are concerned about the back, if we go back, and I agree with the lawyer who's referring to the fact that the building coverage on this corner lot has to be taken into account, the fact that it is on a corner lot. And the committee did consider this in 2017. But what it's resulted in is an inadequate surface area to absorb the water runoff. And as we live on the street, the water does run off onto the street. I'm a little bit further up. My concern is particularly if you do approve the variances, you'll leave in place the wall on the south side of the property. And that will increase the concern that we have with regard to the traffic, and with the structure of the front of the walls, both 18 and also 14. It does make a traffic issue between Cudworth and Robin Hood. Those are my 2 points, and I hope that if you do approve one, that at least address the concern about the safety of the street.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Congram. Any questions for Mr. Congram before we go on to the next speaker? Okay, so next speaker is James Darling at 7 Robin Hood.
Good day, committee members. My name is Jim Darling, and I go by James, or go by Jim, sorry. I live at 7 Robin Hood Road, which is directly, well, not quite directly across from 10 Robin Hood Road. And my comments are following under the title that we put for our note as "The request is not minor." I would like to point out just before starting that this house, the front yard on this house is actually 10 Robin Hood, not Cudworth Place where the front door is. And there's been a lot of confusion between what is the front yard and what are the side allotments. So what has happened is they have actually changed the front door location and their front lawn location to Cudworth, while leaving in place the 10 Robin Hood address. I would also like to point out that I'm not here to discuss the attractiveness of the landscape. I think the letters that have come in, I think fully deal with that, and we have really no objections to the landscaping look as it looks. so I'm not going to talk about that. What I would like to address first off is I would like just to go back and reference the decision letter date March 4th, 2017. This is important because we are trying to highlight to the committee that the request is not minor. So go back to that letter. The total lot coverage is 163.2 square feet larger than it should be. The maximum depth is 8 feet deeper than should be. These were all approved. I'm not arguing about these. The 8 foot deeper required the house to have a sump pump. That sump pump dispersed a significant amount of water because of the displacement of the house on the water table. So that sump pump runs often, and it's almost like a fire hose when it runs. The side yard is 2 feet closer to the lot line. Now, this is the building, and the rear is 14.4 feet closer to the lot line.
Okay.
Okay, so
this
in
is all
feet
done
terms,
back
these are
in,
big numbers.
this is a done deal back in 2017 when they built the house.
I'm not arguing the deal, sir. I'm just trying to make sure that we don't get caught up in small numbers of meters and put it back into the square foot. That is what I like the committee to consider. Okay, so the observations, the ditches on the property's front lawn, which is 10 Robinhood, were eliminated, and I don't know why, with the landscaping. And when they put the front platform of the house on it, that was quite a bit higher than the land. They then had to put these pavers, which they've done, and they've now built a fence. And because it's closer to the street, there is quite an angle of the land dispersing from that house to the road. Now, why is this all important? Well, the houses at 7 Robin Hood, 9 Robin Hood, 11 Robin Hood, I think even 13 Robin Hood or 14 Robin Hood are quite a bit lower than this house at 10 Robin Hood. And that is just the nature of the land. So we live in a lower level house compared to this house. So all of the work that has been done looking at the house itself has not taken into account anything to do with the neighborhood. The ditch on Culvert Place, which is the side yard with the front door, and the culvert underneath the driveway were eliminated. The point of these two statements meaning that there is no real water flow management off of this property. It's just straight onto the street and then straight onto our property. We have incurred significant additional costs to try and manage extra water now running between our neighbors. And in my submission, there is a picture of the amount of water running down our driveway on the one side. I don't know how to put that picture up, but it's in our submission. And it's almost like a small river. And we've had to reparch the side
Sorry,
of our
Mr.
house.
Darling, could you try to wrap up, please? Because you're running out of your allotted time. Just wrap up, please. Thanks.
We have had to, so you can see in the second one, the amount of water just running down that driveway. And the first one just shows you a little bit difference of the elevation between the two houses. The climate change, which is we're all experiencing, has made for much harder rain pours that the pavers cannot handle because they are the major coverage. In closing, when is enough enough? They built the house, they knew all of these problems would come up, and now they keep forcing the committee to go along with what they're asking for when it should never be permitted given the neighborhood. So we asked that these not be accepted, and we asked that the committee instruct the homeowner to put in place a much better water management around their property so they're not causing the neighborhood and their neighbors water issues. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Darling. Okay, next speaker. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Darling before we move on to the next speaker? Okay. No? Okay, so the next speaker is Neol Vitas of 9 Robin Hood Road.
Thank you.
I believe we
Good
have a
morning,
letter
committee
from
members.
that address as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Good morning, committee members and participants. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my concerns regarding the requested hardscape variances for 10 Robin Hood Road. I'm not going to reiterate what my eloquent next door neighbor has shared with you, but I want to talk more about generalities, because you made a comment earlier, sir, that because number 9 and number 7 are across the road, that we are less impacted. And I would like to disagree with that, sir.
I didn't mean, I'm just looking
Okay.
at 18. I didn't mean to cast any aspersions.
Okay.
I mentioned-
No.
I was looking at 18 as
Okay.
down
I'm
the
sorry.
street. Yep.
Okay.
I did say
Okay,
that these are
okay,
neighborhood
all right.
concerns and they're valid. So
Yeah.
sorry
Okay.
to imply that,
Uh,
anything less.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, sir. So I just want to speak in more generalities. The decline in grade in the immediate area starts on the south side of Herne Hill and continues south to Robin Hood Road and to the cemetery of St. George's on the Hill, which is behind myself and number 7, and goes beyond. So that grade, it's a significant grade over a larger area. Since 2010, the immediate area encompassing Herne Hill, Cudworth Place, and Robin Hood Road has experienced significant infill, most houses requesting variances in footprint in excess of those allowed by bylaws. In addition, each house has added significant hardscapes and of course, subsequent changes in grade. Changes in footprint has increased watershed from roofs and hardscapes, overburdening culverts, some of which have been filled in by builders and homeowners and certainly not maintained by the city. So what is actually happening is that when there's a significant downpour, and I'm not equating that to be in excess of what we experienced in 2012, but what is resulting is that I have rivers of water that flow on either side of my house. It's eroding my landscape and is coming within inches of my foundation. I will, like my neighbors, will need to look at some sort of mitigating investments to manage this flow of water. I don't believe that everything, for me, the impact that I'm feeling is all because of number 10. I think it's the cumulative effect by having uncontrolled growth and hardscape coverage in our area. And I am looking for the committee to start reeling some of that in, because the impacts to neighbors are becoming more and more significant each year. And that is why I have asked to speak against accepting the variances for number 10, because I believe that we can no longer accommodate and we are being put in increasing risk to the safety of our structures as more and more of these variances are being allowed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, in terms of the massing, I guess more massing is less area for water to absorb into the ground. And first of all, I just want to clarify my reference to Tarion before. That was because for some reason the Safe Tech letter, and I'm sure Ms. Flynn Guglielmo is going to come back and say they're saying that the permeable pavers is sufficient and that it's a sufficient mitigating, it mitigates the storm runoff. That letter wasn't in fact addressed to Tarion Warranty Corporation rather than to the homeowner. So that was my reference to that. So, I take it that they have a report that says this is fine, but we're hearing from the neighbors that based on the flow of the street and that the odd side of the street is lower than the even side of the street. So we have one last speaker, the one next door, Ms. Cheng at 8 Robin Hood. Unless anyone has any questions for the speaker at 9 before we move on. Okay, so Ms. Chang? Or Mr. Chang? Kaysing Chan?
Mr. Chair, we do have her on the line. I have unmuted her as well. I'm not sure.
Okay, anyway, we've heard from 3 neighbors with concerns with the landscaping, as we've heard. So let's, if we don't have it, we can't.
We can try and reach out to her.
Well, we've heard from 3 neighbors. She is directly next door, and I don't believe we have a letter from that neighbor. Yeah, we have letters from 9/7 and 18, but.
Mr. Chair, I think Paul's just going to try and reach out to her quickly.
Okay. Okay, Lord. Well, why don't you put her on the phone and let her, you can convey what she's going to say, because we got to move, we spent almost a half an hour in this hearing. We have 44 applications today, so.
I'm going to put you on speakerphone. Ms. Chang?
Hi, this is Kaixin Cheng at number 8 Robin Hood Road. Is it my turn?
Yes, it is. Let's hear you. Please let us know what your concerns are. And you're coming in loud and clear, even though you're coming in off of a speakerphone held up to a microphone. So I don't know if you've been listening to the other presentation by the agent and by your other neighbors, concerns with the landscape variances. So we want to know, you're right next door. We want to hear what your concerns are.
Okay. Well, okay. So shall I begin? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. Because your assistant was telling me that they couldn't hear me.
Yeah. You're coming in now off the phone, and we can hear you. So please proceed.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Right. Okay. Let me begin. As noted in the city's order to comply notice, the entire side yard at number 10 Robin Hood Road is covered with precast paving stone, leaving no soft landscaping as required, as approved by the permit plans originally. Their stone-covered yard surface has caused all the rainwater and snow meltwater from their property, as well as those from Cutworth Place, which is north of both of our houses, as well as 4 other houses on the same side of our street. They caused that meltwater and rainwater from Cutworth Place to flow down onto my yards as well, because Cudworth Place is 1 meter higher than our street, Robin Hood Road. Now, significant damage to my property because of this accumulated excessive water in my yard and personal health problems have resulted from their action. These damages and health threats are summarized as follows. Number 1, during every heavy rain event since May 2018, I have experienced significant flooding in my basement and also molding starting to appear on the walls and near the base of my base of the walls along that side of my house next to their property. This flooding is exacerbated by their downspouts, the downpipes that discharge directly onto the precast paving stone surface. Adding the rain and snow melt load from their roof to that would naturally freely fall onto the precast paving stones themselves. So basically, it is double the water load. And then, because they have raised the level of their yard surface at least 2 to 3 feet higher than my yard level, as well as above the government property south of both of our yards, they have filled about at least 2.5 to 3 feet of soil on top of the government property in front of their yard and filled up the trench that discharge rainwater in front of both of our houses. And that trench also channels surface water away from our yards that flow down from Cudworth Place through our backyards onto Robin Hood Road. Okay, so I don't know who is in charge of the trench at the moment because I have filed the report about, them filling up the public trench and the public property in front of their yard. Anyway, so because of this elevation difference, they are higher than my yard. So all their excess water flow into my yard. And since they have no soft covering, oh, by the way, I must mention this because in your order to comply, you mentioned that they still have a little bit of soft landscaping. Well, in fact, that soft landscaping is about only 1 inch on the surface that is green.
Ms. Chang, can you please try to wrap up because you've used up your allotted time?
Underneath that 1 inch soft covering is all crushed powder stone.
Ms. Chang, you have to sort of wrap up. You're at your over 5 minutes. Can you please try to summarize and just wrap it up?
I am going to summarize. I'm going to end very soon just to make that point clear. So in actual fact, the precast paving stone plus the veneer soft covering, underneath it is all crushed powder stone as well. So therefore, the water, their rainwater is forced to flow down only onto my yard and nowhere else because I am right next to them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I mean, you've gone over a minute over, so I'm going to have to cut you off here. We've had 4 speakers here, and we have to move on. Thank you. So that's the last speaker. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Chang or committee members or any of the neighbors with concerns before we move back to Ms. Flynn Guglietti for her response? No? Okay, so let's go back to the agent. We've heard from the neighbors, so please, it's in your chance to respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. If I may, I'd like to go back to the Stantec report. if you wouldn't mind putting that up. And I'd like to go to figure A8, which is on page 6 of the report. And that is to the right in the diagram. No? Yes, okay. So if we could go to, there we are. It's the one at the bottom. If we could sort of focus in a little bit more. To the left is Miss Chang's property, and to the right is my client's property. And as you'll see from the note, it illustrates the east side of the property looking south. Crushed stones were utilized to create a highly permeable walkway, mitigating any risk of stormwater runoff onto the adjacent property and city sewers. So between her property and my client's property, it is predominantly crushed stones, which is highly permeable. It is as good as putting grass there. Now, just so that we can comment, Ms. Chang has issues on her property. We're not certain what is the origin of those issues, but she has made numerous and many complaints to the city. The city has come and the city has inspected. During all of that, the only non-compliance was with respect to the amount of soft landscaping and the zoning bylaw. There have been no other infractions against my client. And so therefore, with respect to many of the issues that she's raised, they're not related to my client's property. And if we could just stick to the photos here, I'd like to go to figure A1 and figure A2. Those are the pictures showing the property that portion of the property is what fronts onto Robinhood. And as you'll see in the two photos, that has the largest amount of landscaping, including large trees, flower beds, and a great deal of grass. There is a grade differential generally in the neighborhood, but those problems are not being caused by my client's landscaping. And particularly with respect to Robinhood, that is the largest amount of the green landscaping, as you'll see, which is not hard landscaping at all, but rather soft landscaping as it faces Robinhood. So my client has certainly listened to what the neighbors' concerns generally in the neighborhood are, did hire an expert engineer to review the property, and has concluded that the issues from the neighborhood are not directly related to my client's variance application and the soft landscaping variances that we are seeking. And I would be happy to answer any other questions and would ask that the committee would approve the application as submitted.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for either the agent or any of the neighbors, or someone pipe up? Someone have any questions? Okay, if no one has any questions, is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Taylor.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the concerns that we had expressed today fall into two main categories. One relates to stormwater drainage. There's a couple of points I'd like to make about that. One is the engineering study referenced by the agent that mitigates this property against any negative implications associated with stormwater drainage. The other comment I would make on that is that this committee has no purview or mandate to deal with stormwater issues, whether they be local or citywide. There are other approval authorities and avenues of recourse available to address those issues. The second area of concern had to do with built form, and this committee in May 2017 established the built form for this property by way of an approval, and the building is built in accordance with that decision. So I find that the variances meet the four tests under the Planning Act, and I move for approval.
Okay, and I don't believe there are any conditions.
That's right, none that I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay, do I have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion? Mr. Kamerick, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion carries 4-1. Mr. Palmer is opposed. Thank you, neighbors, and thank you, Ms. Guglietti.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, members of the committee.
Okay, our
Hope
next.
you have a good day.
Thank you, you too. Okay, our next application is item number 13, 24 Thompson Avenue. It's an application to construct a one-story north side addition, which will include an attached garage, a one-story west side addition, a new covered front porch, and a third-story rear terrace. There are 5 variances on this application. We have revised plans and a waiver, supporting materials. We have natural ravine and forest protection. We have 4 support letters. We have Thompson Orchard Community Association with concerns with variance number 4, the third-story platform. And they don't want it to be, their main thing is they don't want it to set a precedent. The area planner feels that due to unique characteristics of this lot, but they don't want it to be they refer to as a comparator to other more typical lots. And we have registered to speak on this application the agent, Franco Romano, as well as the agent at 76 Thompson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Franco Romano here on behalf of the owner.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Romano. So
I'm going to be referring to my slides. Just you can just let me know when you're ready.
We have that concern from the Thompson Orchard Association. So would you like to make a brief presentation?
Yes, sir. I'd like to refer to my slides. I have a 3-slide package. While that's while that is coming up, sure. While that is coming up, I can say that the owner has been quite diligent in working with his neighbors as well as TOCA to articulate, describe, and actually perfect the platform, but also to articulate and describe the proposal overall. So the TOCA actually has no objections to the revised platform variance of 17 square meters, subject to the screening that's being supplied and provided on the north and south side. Their concerns, as has been discussed with them and articulated in their letter, is that this application deals with this property alone, and this property is atypical to the neighborhood. It is about 2.5 times the size of most properties within the neighborhood and the zoning bylaw permission, if not more. You know, there are other properties that are much smaller. Certainly, this property is located on the it's the first lot south from BLAIR Street. So it's adjacent to about a 6-story condominium building, which is at 3085 BLAIR Street West. And it is also budding detached dwelling to the south, number 26 Thompson. Number 26 Thompson is in full support of the variances, including the platform with a 1.83 meter privacy screen, which has been incorporated and recommended for approval. The proposal is for a 1-story addition that wraps around the existing building, and you'll see that in a diagonal hatch around the building. So the gross floor area variance is more of a technical variance because the floor space index actually complies with the bylaw. It's smaller than the bylaw. The technical variance for gross floor area is because the bylaw does say for every property, regardless of size, that 185 square meters is one of the maximums, and the proposal is at 515.94. So it's more of a technical variance that reflects the lot size.
Right, because I see your
The
lot
side yard
size is actually under, it's 0.42, but I guess it's because it's a
Correct.
larger lot. As you explained, it's
Yeah, it's a
the
12.
size of
It's
the-
about a 1,235 square meter lot with a 29.9 meter lot frontage. So this is not your typical lot in this neighborhood. The side yard setback is triggered by the pinch point. You'll see that pinch point on the north side, 1.64 meters, which added together with the other side is the 4.38 meters. The length you'll see is from the front bay window, which has a foundation. Otherwise, the building is just over 16 meters in length, 16.65 meters. And the building addition is shorter than that around the sides. And the front platform, I guess the front porch encroachment is basically a reconfiguration of the existing porch. It's almost an existing condition. So the platform that's being sought off of the third floor master bedroom is not an entertainment area. It's not a primary living space. It is a private amenity space for the owner, and the owner has go to great lengths to perfect the design of that platform. And in perfecting the design of the platform, you see that it's being reduced in size, and within that 17 square meters that's being sought, there's going to be basically green privacy screening on the north and south sides. Despite the fact that that platform has a south side yard setback that's going to be over 6 meters, and a north side yard setback that's going to be over 18 meters. So that shows the atypical location. It's it's well distanced from properties. It's supported by the detached neighbor to the south, as well as the neighbors to the west in the rear yard. So I would submit, sir, and I've had discussions with planning even before the application was submitted, that the initial 25.78 square meter platform meets the general intent and purpose of the bylaw and satisfies all 4 tests for a minor variance. So the reduction helps to mitigate some of the concerns that were raised from a precedent setting perspective, which I don't think it is precedent setting, because we're dealing with each application on their own merits. So I would submit, sir, that the variances being sought satisfy all 4 tests for a minor variance, reflect a sensitive design that maintains the existing building, has a modest 1-story addition around it.
Okay, please wrap up. Thank you, Mr.
Satisfies all 4 tests for a minor variance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we do have, did anyone have any questions for Mr. Romano before we move on to the one neighbor with concerns who wishes to address the committee at 76 Thompson? Okay, is Mr. Watson, Andrew Watson, 76 Thompson?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah.
You state your name and address
so
just formally and let us know what your concerns are. You seem to be ways down from the subject property.
Sure. Yeah, so it's Andrew Watson. I live at 76 Thompson Avenue. I'm a member of the TOCA board, which is the community association. I work on the development committee.
Okay, so you're here as a representative. I was wondering, because you're quite a ways down, but you're here representing the neighborhood association, the Thompson Orchard Community Association, TOCA.
Yes, I am.
So we have your letter and about not wanting this to be viewed as a precedent, since it's very, as Mr. Romano just said, it's an anomaly in terms of the lot configuration of this particular lot.
Yes, I'll just touch on this very quickly and say, that's absolutely the case. We agree that the lot is an anomaly within the Thompson Orchard area, RD18, within the bylaw. And we had, conversations with the city planner and also the applicant with regards to this. So we're satisfied with the reduction of the back balcony terrace, and that this is a unique lot, and we appreciate the effort on behalf of the applicant to reach out to immediate neighbors and to the community association. And that's all I had to comment on.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Watson, or we'll move back to Mr. Romano just to, I guess there's no real need for him to respond to that, but he can. Mr. Romano?
Sorry, only echo Mr. Watson's comments that the association is also instrumental in their assistance to perfect the platform design. I appreciate their efforts as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Romano. Any follow-up final questions for either the applicant or the neighbor, or the TOCA representative, or is someone ready to bring a motion? Yes, and variance 4 was reduced to 17 square meters. And I don't believe there's any conditions.
There's a ravine comment.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I could just weigh in on that. My reading of the urban forestry report is it's a condition
Okay.
as opposed to a comment. Are you okay with that, Mr.
Yes.
Romano? It's a condition, number 1.
Yes, sir. We're working diligently to work with Ravine on the on satisfying that condition. No worries.
Oh,
Okay, on that basis, I'm satisfied that the application meets the 4 tests. And subject to urban forestry condition number 1, I move for approval.
thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any seconder for that motion?
I'll second.
Thank
I
you, Mr.
will.
Palmer. You were going to say something? Did you want to add some comment?
No, I'm good.
Oh, I thought you were going to go on and say something. Okay, so we have a motion. It's been seconded. All in favor? Neil Palmer. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Is that this application has come up, this planning report requests refusal of 2 of the variances, but not of the other ones, 1 and 3, but not 2, 4 and 5. Sorry, yeah, variances 1 and 3, the floor space index and the building length, which to me, again, is something we have to raise with community planning when they, this also comes up this afternoon in another one, item number 28, where there's 9 variances being requested, and they only request the 1 FSI, which would mean the whole application fails. So the danger, as Mr. Palmer stated at another meeting several months ago, that would involve proving variances out of context, which may have unintended consequences, giving the applicant as of right certain variances that were not mentioned by community planning. So we have to have a discussion with community planning about that. Okay, Mr. Primiani.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and
morning.
committee members. I do have to apologize. I'm not sure if it was just me, but the introduction to your this file, you seem to be cut off. You were blanked off. I didn't hear the beginning.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
don't know how long. I don't know what you were saying.
So I'll just repeat that for you if you were cut off. So what I'm saying is, in this application, another one this afternoon, community planning is recommending a refusal, but not of the entire application, which I believe, if that was their intent, to eliminate or not give you variances 1 and 3 in this instance, that in fact what they should be telling us is to refuse the entire application. That's all I was saying. Because
right, okay.
To give you a flat roof height variance out of context, side yard variance out of context, and a depth variance out of context, to me makes no sense whatsoever. And the one this afternoon, there are actually 9 variances, and they're saying just get rid of the GFA of 0.4 to 0.66, which means he couldn't do anything anyway. So I was just making a general point that when community planning tells us just picks out a major variance, that is not the appropriate, and if it was a planning exam at Ryerson or Waterloo, I think that would be a failing grade if someone made a suggestion. So that's all. So your challenge is to let us know why, notwithstanding the recommendation of city planning, why this is worthy of approval.
Mr. Chair, we seem to be having some difficulty with our YouTube feed. If we can just stand the hearing down for a few minutes while we try to solve that.
Okay. So, Mr. Primiani and members, can we just, we're just going to take a short break to see if we can resolve the YouTube issues.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Still frozen. Oh yeah, 14, we did get something new. Phil, this new letter on 14 that we're on, I know, but he seems to say we have to reapply to the committee during the permit process, made it where the prevailing bylaw only affecting 13 homes. This was missed in our initial internal zoning review. We are submitting the same home as our first submission, but this submission has now included updated zoning statistics. This letter is dated February 12th, so I assume it's already been done. So it's not like they're changing it now in March 9th. It's back a month ago. So forget it. It was just a copy that he sent out to the neighbors, and one guy signed it. Oh, fuck. Paul, at the break, maybe you can, my trackpad isn't working and there's a little, I don't know why it's not working. Because I usually use that when I'm doing my review. It was the very last item. And I didn't notice if normally there's a light there or not. Maybe there is, but it just doesn't seem to work with that. Yeah. Or maybe, yeah. Maybe that'll. Weird. And I don't remember seeing that light on before.
There might be a setting.
I know when I put them on my desktop, it didn't indicate if the time slot, so I have to sort of just hit or miss.
I've never seen this before, like that light.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever noticed that light before.
This is all.
Anyway, in the meantime, I can use the mouse. But
Yeah, I'm just curious now.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing. We're on. Are we on? Testing. Stan?
I hear you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, we have audio.
We seem to be doing all right. We can see the members. It's just our room that's frozen.
Okay. Okay, so we were just in the middle of item number 14. We were just about to hear from Mark Permiani, the agent, about why this is, he's the only speaker, about why this application merits approval rather than refusal of variances 1 and 3 or refusal of all the variances.
Once again, good morning, Mr. Chair.
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
Wait, this is Michael or Mike doing something.
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
Did we lose, we have Mr. Permiani? Okay. Do we still have audio? Members hear us? Is Mr. Permiani? struggling to keep up. You know.
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
Okay, so Chair, it's Neil. So we lost your feed at the beginning of the last application, which I think were your introductory remarks, which is what the applicant was referring to when he said he had lost your feed as well. So I think he got the comments starting when you were explaining about the staff recommendation. That's
right.
sort of when the feed started.
Would you like me to reiterate the staff, because it actually, I brought your name up because I pointed out that this is completely inappropriate, and this is an application number 28 where the planner is recommending refusal of two major variances. For this is a new build, 0.4 permitted, they're at 0.6 something. To disallow that and the length, but let the other variances, including depth and three other variances, stand completely out of context, not tied to anything. So I was indicating that that would be inappropriate. And as you mentioned, you can't give variances completely out of context. That they would start off next time with having that as of right once they got a partial approval. So I think what I was stating in these circumstances, it's more appropriate, as you mentioned at an earlier hearing this fall, to refuse the entire application. Then I went over to Mr. Premiani and I said, okay, Mr. Premiani, please make a presentation to advise the committee why this application is worthy of support. I had pointed out, I think it was an Arbus report on this application as well. And we actually just received a letter of late arriving correspondence, but I believe it's a copy of a letter from the homeowners to neighbors dated February 12th explaining certain changes that they made at that time. So that's the status of that. So Mr. Premiani, can you just, I think when we got cut off, the ball was in your court to make a presentation.
Yeah, I made my introductions. Mark Premiani, Architect Design Group, 30 Intermodal Drive, Brampton, Ontario. I'm representing Carlo and Connie Lucia, the homeowners of 85 Haliburton. That last document you just mentioned is our 8th letter of support. So I just wanted to mention that to you. Spoke to Annalisa Mora yesterday. She wanted me just to mention that our cover letter incorrectly mentions our requested floor space index of 0.68, which was revised to 0.71 in February due to a zoning report error. Our drawings have been updated and the revised drawings were uploaded to reflect this. Basically, the required site area in this residential zone is 510 square meters. Where our site is 490.7 square meters, and that constituted the difference in FSI from 0.68 to 0.71. As a reminder, I wanted to mention that we previously submitted.
So can we just hang on? Just want to make sure, do we have the revised yellow mark sheet lowering the variance number 1 from 0.71 to 0.68?
No, we're requesting 0.71.
Oh,
we had incorrectly listed 0.68 in our cover letter. We are requesting a 0.71 FSI.
Okay, so what's the reference to 0.68?
No, what I'm saying is, there was an incorrect calculation done during zoning review, where they
Okay,
divided our.
I get it now. That's what the
You know what?
explanation to the neighbors was, to point out that in fact it's 0.71
Yes,
back
yeah.
a month ago. Okay. And someone
So-
cited, so these are consistent with the other support letters from 88
Yes.
Burno, Mr. Martino.
Yes, all 8 support letters have supported this. So as a reminder, I wanted to mention that we previously submitted for Committee of Adjustments for this property with the same home design. And all of our minor variances were approved in October of 2020, based on the citywide bylaw 569-2013. During the building permit review process, the zoning examiner brought to our attention that this property also falls under the prevailing bylaw 1992-25. Based on that, we were required to resubmit for Committee of Adjustments to capture the modified requirements from the prevailing bylaw. The design of the previously approved home has not changed for this resubmission. However, we did increase the soft landscaping areas with some landscape design modifications. We also reduced and removed some roof projections around the perimeter of the building to further reduce the impact of the proposed dwelling. It is important to note that we have no objections on this submission, and we have received 8 letters of support from neighbors who are all within or just outside the very small area in the neighborhood which is affected by the prevailing bylaw, including our 2 immediate neighbors at 83 and 87 Haliburton. Based on the staff report, 2 of the variances seem to be of concern, and I would like to address them as follows. Variance number 1, our proposed floor space index of 0.71 based on the prevailing bylaw. As a reminder, the design of the home has not changed, and under the citywide bylaw, it was previously approved. There are a few homes in the area, particularly 77 Haliburton, 87 Hillcrest, which have been approved with floor space indexes of 0.68. We feel the difference is minor in nature and primarily due to the fact that our lot area is smaller than the required lot area for this zone. And I'll repeat that again, it's required at 510 square meters. Our lot area is 490.7 square meters. As for variance number 3, the maximum permitted building length of 17 meters and the proposed dwelling has a length of 19.1 meters. It is very important to understand that this was also previously approved. We have a floating master bedroom projection on the 2nd floor only and is less than half the width of the home. The 19.1 meter building length is measured to that wall. We made a compensation for this rear projection by pushing back the ground floor wall below the projection by 4 meters. The prominent rear 2-story wall is only 17.4 meters in building length. If you could please bring up the revised plans submitted on February 10th, 2021. I can demonstrate this clearly on drawing COA-4. This should be the revised plans, I think. Yeah, so COA-4. So if you go down to the rear yard there, you can, right there, yeah. So you can see what we've done. You can see the line of floor above in that thick hidden line. And what we've done to compensate for that floating master bedroom is we've pushed back the ground floor by just over 4 meters. And the prominent wall, which is the wall to the right, that's the 2-story wall. It is at 17.4 meters, which is just over the required building length. This was the argument I presented at our first hearing, and we gained support from all committee members on that point. So we feel strongly that you guys will also support this. You know, we've worked closely with our client, who is a family of 4. to design their dream home in their most desired neighborhood. And I just want to thank you for listening to our presentation and trust that you will support our application.
Okay, thank you. And sorry about that gap in between your presentation to deal with our communication issues. Yes, so we have the previous decision here from October 6, 2020.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and again, in terms of the planning report, you'll agree with me at point, if they deny your GFA variance, you can't build a new home here, correct? So the whole application would fail if they give you 0.4. Oh, here's the question I have. Why is it, Mr. Primirani, that you don't have a GFA variance under the new the citywide bylaw, only under the old bylaw?
We had a variance for both.
Oh, maybe because it was in the last. Okay,
It's just the previous one. There was a citywide bylaw. There was still a variance because we were over the required. We were at 0.6, I think, based on those calculations with the same home design.
Okay.
But with the prevailing bylaw and the different calculations, it brought us up to 0.71.
Okay, so shouldn't have said somewhere on that application, if anything, just for neighbors to realize that you already had 0.6 under the new bylaw of 0.6. So good variance too under your previous approval. Under the old bylaw, you're at 0.6. You're saying you're not going over 0.6 under the calculation under the new bylaw. Just under the old bylaw, there's another variance at 0.71, but it's consistent with this.
Yeah, the house has not changed in design.
Okay, that's what I was missing. I don't know if anyone else was having that issue, because you already have 0.6, which is what it is as calculated under the citywide bylaw. Okay, so let's see if anyone has any questions for you. And I just wanted to get in the record at 0.4 or at 0.6 under the old bylaw. 0.4 is 0.71, then you couldn't build. So I didn't quite understand the planning report. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Primirani, or is someone ready to make a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Don Taylor, I find the requested variances are technical in nature and really don't change what this committee approved in October last year. I find they meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval. And we've already noted that Urban Forestry has waived their condition. So my motion would be without conditions.
Okay, thank you. I just want to point out, I just took another look at this memo that recommended refusal of variances 1 and 3, and in fact, they missed it because they talk about the variances being measured under 569/2013, but then below, when you look at the variance, it wasn't even under that section. So another criticism of this particular planning report from me. So thank you, Mr. Taylor, for that motion. Do I have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion of approval of the application?
I would like to second, but I'd like to add a friendly amendment and perhaps tie it to the drawings so that we're not setting a precedent, but we're acknowledging that this particular situation is appropriate.
Okay, so the new
Don,
way
how do you
that
feel
the
about that?
wording, before we...
Yeah, I'm good with that, Mr. Kumaric. I'm good with that.
Okay, so
Okay.
in terms of the wording of that, recently at the last meeting you weren't at, I pointed out that the wording has seemed to change as instead of being substantially in accordance with, it's now being referred to as constructed as illustrated on the whatever document with respect to X, with respect to the GFA or with respect to the length. So I think we need that type of wording, Mr. Carvalino. Like, which document should we tie that to, Mr. Kumaric?
That's a good question. I was not aware that they're changing that. I thought we could just still do substantially in accordance with.
Yeah, the new wording seems to be constructed as illustrated on, let's say, the site plan with respect to, so in your concern here with respect to the which variance do you want tied down?
Well, I wanted to address the 1 and 3 issue, but you know what? That's going to be too restrictive. I'm going to withdraw my condition and just second it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mr. Kamarick. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Permanani.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so item number 15 is being held at the request of Mr. Rose at the end of the time slot. I assume he assumed maybe the time slot would have been over by now, but it's not. We do have only, other than that, 2 other applications. 17 has been deferred, so we have 16, 18, and then we'll go back to 15. So the next application is item number 16, 45 8th Street. We have one speaker on that, Trevor Gain, the agent, and I'll just do a quick introduction. And this is an application for another new detached dwelling with an attached garage, and there are 5 variances. Planning, urban forestry is looking for a denial. Planning is looking to reduce or modify the variances as reflected in a revised submission. Oh, so it appears that there's been some agreement reached, and there are revised plans, revised waiver, street photos, urban forestry, and community planning would like certain modifications, and in this case, as we'll hear from Mr. Gain, it looks like maybe they've already negotiated all of this. Mr. Gain?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Trevor Gain. I'm the agent here on behalf of the owners.
Yes. So, Mr. Gain, am I correct that these, the planning conditions or the planning suggestions or revisions to the variances, as they state on the last page, that they've reviewed that, they've discussed it with the applicant, and as a result, you've revised the application, submitted revised plans and a zoning waiver, and the following variances have been revised, and others remain unchanged. So that, does that summarize the status?
That
of
is
the
exactly
application?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we worked with planning to kind of keep the variances more in check with the neighborhood, and we worked with them, so we did submit the zoning waiver. The changes are reflected, as you can see on the screen. That is the correction in the 3 variances, mainly in the floor space index, the wall height or the height, and the second floor balcony, which is really, the 10 square meters is really the ground floor deck, but because we have a little mudroom behind our garage, it kind of hits this technical thing about what's the main floor. So now our ground floor is the second floor deck. So it was designed as of right projection, but speaking with planning, they did still wanted to be comfortable with the reduction, so we agreed to 10.
Yeah, it's just technically a second floor because it is off the kitchen for place for a barbecue and outdoor dining. So it's not a typical little small coffee area off a bedroom. It's just the way it's meant.
That's correct.
Yes. Okay. So you've agreed to that, and you've. Okay. Let's see if committee members have any questions for you. Then, since you've. There's no one here with concerns, and just I guess we have the arborist report and the urban forestry request.
I can speak to the forestry request if you like, or if the. So the problem with this online world is just trying to get a hold of somebody. We reached out to forestry at the beginning about removing this kind of 9-centimeter tree in the front yard. In the past, we've had no problems kind of, paying in lieu or planting, et cetera, et cetera. And then as of late last week, we got their memo recommending refusal. So the simple solve here is really to just flip the house. If I can get the street photos up on the screen, right now there's the 2 driveways are together. So when we originally designed this, was sort of an urban design exercise. We were trying to do driveway, green space, driveway, green space. If I can get the first page, page 1. So that worked with planning and everybody, but urban forestry had a different idea. So photograph number 2, the little white bungalow, that's the subject property. You could see the subject tree kind of on the right side. And what will happen now is that if the driveway was on the south side of the property, that tree would be basically just removed and replaced kind of towards the north. But I don't think that's going to be acceptable to forestry. So our solution is that we're just going to flip the house over, and the proposed driveway would be right where the bins and the front steps are. That's an existing parking pad as it stands right now. So the paved area would just maintain. The driveway would slide right past this tree. That tree would remain, and everything would be fine. So there's no changes to the variances. It's only just working with forestry at this point.
Okay.
And I'll just point out finally that you know, I was never a big fan of putting driveways together, but that sort of seems to happen in this area. If we can zoom out of the photographs and look at photograph number 3, you'll see that the situation is up and down the street, driveways together, trees flanking these driveways. So I think what we're proposing, you know, is in keeping of the neighborhood. It's in character. The trees will thrive, and this way it just becomes an injury permit because we're still going to be within the 1.8 meter tree protection zone, but the existing parking pad is already there. So I think it's just a straightforward application opposed to a tree removal, which
Okay,
should
so you're
satisfy
gonna
urban
deal with
forestry.
urban forest. You'll deal with urban forestry on that, I would take it.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Gain, or is someone ready to make a motion?
Is that a city or private tree?
That's a city tree, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any further
Hey,
questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. I can see urban forestry in their comprehensive memo dated March 2nd recommended refusal, whereas on February 26th, they had recommended condition number 1. So I'm presuming and hoping that the applicant would be okay if we imposed urban forestry condition number 1, which may turn out to be moot given the relocation of the driveway. Have I got that right? I just don't want to ignore urban forestry entirely, recognizing that you, sir, may be able to satisfy their concerns subsequent to an approval if we made it today, if we imposed their condition number 1. Would that be okay to you, sir?
Yeah, we're expecting condition number 1. We have our arborist report all ready to go. We just got to switch it from removal to injury, and I
Yes.
think it, like I said, we're within the 1.8 meter tree protection zone, so it's required, right? The
Okay.
application.
And the city has also requested that your driveway be constructed of permeable pavers. Are you aware of and okay with that?
Yeah, that was part of our negotiations with planning. And just as an aside, I'll just mention about the soft landscaping, if I may. It's actually a slight improvement. It's kind of an existing situation. The existing bungalow has this front porch, which occupies most of the front yard. So by removing the porch and kind of pushing our house back to align with the neighbors, we're actually increasing the amount of landscape and the amount of soft landscaping by like 2%. So that being said, it is sort of a positive direction, but it's really just an existing condition because of the driveways and the parking pads and the size of the house that there's just no landscaping on this property, thus the variance. But coincidentally enough, you know, what is there is pretty much all soft, so we do meet the soft requirement.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the permeable pavers is just a positive step forward from that even further. So we're fine with that.
Okay, well, on that basis, Mr. Chair, I would move approval on the basis that the variances satisfy the forecasts under the Planning Act, and my motion would be conditional upon urban forestry condition number 1, and that the driveway be constructed of permeable pavers.
Okay, and that's taken from, I guess, the planning suggested, other than the ones where you actually changed the variances. So thank you for that motion. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I would ignore the planning condition, their concerns about the variances, because I believe they've been resolved with the revised proposal. And by the way, my motion would be with respect to the revised proposal.
Obviously, that. Okay, seconded for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. Reddick, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Gain.
Thank you. Have a nice afternoon.
Okay. Item 17 has been deferred, so we're on to number 18. And then we have to go back to 15. So number 18 is 14 Fieldstone. This matter was deferred from November 5th, 2020. It's for a new basement walkout, and there's only one variance. It was deferred in order to correctly identify the required variances. And we have before us only one speaker. Oh, no, we have two speakers. We have the owner, Jack Stanley Krubnik, and the neighbor at 12 Fieldstone. I believe last time we had the neighbor at 16 who appeared. Mr. Piazza, I don't know, he's not before us at this point. So we do have letters of concern, cover letter. So, Mr. Krubnik.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Here for seeking, before the committees, to seek a minor variance for a side yard setback for an access for below grade stairs to secondary suite in the basement level. I think when I was here previously, the item was deferred because the wrong plans were before the committee, showing it on the opposite side of the house, which was a far older initial iteration, and that's why you had the concerned letters from 16 Fieldstone Road.
Right.
And my understanding is today we have a speaker from 12, which is the side that is closest to the below grade walkway that's proposed.
Okay, and I don't believe we have, do we have two letters from 16, one with some questions dated, there's no date on it. And then the other one is dated October 20th, 2020, and we don't have anything from number 12 in writing, but they are here to speak to the matter. Okay, so why don't we hear from them, and then you can respond to the concerns raised. Did you like to, because you do have the letter from the owner of 16 before you, so have you addressed their concerns in your submission, or?
I would put it forward that I believe those have been addressed because they were under the impression that the stairs were on the east side of the building when in fact they are on the west side of the building.
Okay. Okay, so let's hear from Mr. Steinecke at 12 Fieldstone. Hello, sir.
Okay, the speaker today is Donna Stein. The speaker is Donna Steinecke for 12 Fieldstone. I'm homeowner.
Okay, so you're Donna.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Donna, correct. Next door neighbor. Good afternoon. The Krubnik family are good members, or good neighbors, and I make these submissions with reluctance. My main concern is that the variance proposed would affect the water drainage from the surrounding backyards. There are 4 large backyards that slope towards our 2 houses. The bulk of the water drains between our 2 houses. However, the land between our houses is quite flat. During heavy rains, the water accumulates between the houses and does not drain easily. We have had major water issues in the past. We have spent a considerable amount of time and tens of thousands of dollars to seal our basement and grade the land properly between our homes to minimize the damage. And we have fixed the problem. I believe the previous owner to the Krubniks had the same issues since we worked together on the grading. While Jack Krubnik has reassured my husband that he would work with us to minimize the water drainage risk, I just cannot see how a concrete set of stairs at the proposed location, blocking half of the land between our houses near the entrance point from the backyard, will not adversely affect the drainage. Water issues will only get worse with climate changes as storms become more fierce. One of the things I believe you consider is whether the extension or enlargement would adversely affect the surrounding properties. This variance would significantly affect water drainage in the area, especially our own home, as our property would have to be the sole conduit for the water to drain to the front of our properties. I cannot imagine that the construction of the staircase would allow the water to fall into the stairwell. Most, if not all, the water would now be directed towards our wall and basement. As much as I would like to help my neighbors, I'm objecting to the variance because of this concern.
Thank you.
I would ask, in short, I would ask that you refuse this variance. The request is not minor. Thank you. I appreciate your time and your consideration.
Thank you. So you realize the one variance is that these stairs should be no closer than 0.6 of a meter. And in fact, he's 0.2 of a meter. So we're talking about a 0.4 of a meter, about 1.5 feet. Would if it was pushed back 1.5 feet, or if, I don't know if that's possible, would that situation be ameliorated, or you'd have the same situation even if it was possible, just by, if it was 1.5 feet further away, would you still have the same issues that you're speaking of today, or you feel they'd be ameliorated? Because that's the variance before us. It's 1.5 feet, 0.4 of a meter. Okay, so I'll just throw that out.
Could you explain that, please? I don't quite understand.
All I'm saying is the one variance that your neighbor
I couldn't quite hear you.
has-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you've been cutting out. I don't know if we're having problems with your connection, but what I'm saying is the one variance is that he's supposed to be 0.6 meters to the lot line, and he's 0.2 meters. So he's 0.4 of a meter is the actual variance, but I don't know if it's possible for him to have done that. But if he did, would you have the same problem, or it would be less of a problem because it was a 1.5 feet further away from your property line? That's all. I'm just throwing out that rhetorical question.
It would still be a problem.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we do have the letter from the neighbor on the other side, but I understand they misunderstood, and it is in fact closer to the Steinecke's lot line, not the neighbor at 16. That's correct, right?
That is my understanding.
Okay.
And this is now the owner of 14 Fieldstone.
Okay, so Mr. Kubrick, if you can respond, I guess you have the right to respond now, and then we'll take it in. See if committee members have any questions. Do you have any questions for the neighbor at 12 before we move back to?
Yeah, Neil Palmer. So you have an issue with the staircase in the side yard. That's your issue.
Yeah, it's the only variance.
It will block the water.
Sorry, you cut out
It
there.
will block the water flow. Yes, I do. It will block the water flow.
Okay. No, I just wanted to clarify. So your issue is with the stairway being in the side yard. And the ramifications coming from that. Okay. Thank you.
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Krubnik, I'd like to respond to the neighbor's concerns. You have the right to a rebuttal, and then we'll take it into committee.
Sure, please. Thank you very much. I think I would just ask the committee to really consider the merits of the application, and the variances before them. It is for below grade stairs, which would not be visible from street level, and it's well pushed back from the street area as well. And this is to accommodate now a secondary suite in the basement. As you all know, council has 2 years back now permitted secondary suites and detached in these neighborhoods. I guess in the worst case scenario, I can push my stairs to the rear yard. I'd rather have it where it is. I've always shown, or shown to spoke to my neighbors and told them that I would work with them the best I can to ameliorate any of the concerns they have with regards to drainage. I do too also want to repair drainage on my side of the home as well. I think I will mention that, the stairs themselves, they do have a drainage port at the bottom of the stairs, like every staircase of this nature is required to have. So the drainage that flows on the stairs itself will be handled on my property. My intent is with the construction of these stairs as well to properly drain my property, so that drainage does not impact or affect the neighboring 12 Fieldstone Road. So I will handle the drainage that's coming onto my property, and I will not disperse it onto the neighbor's property. And they're more than I'm more than happy to show them any kind of plans I have pertaining to paving or pertaining to a concrete walkway or whatever it may be, the details of which are not complete at this point, but I am open to having that discussion, and I surely want to maintain good relations with them and make sure that that drainage is not an issue for myself and not an issue for them in this process.
Okay, thank you. I get your point. And I guess the issue is if you're just a foot away, I guess you can't comply. So the issue is the neighbor admitted that she'd have the same problem if you were a foot and a half away from her property. And the other thing you pointed out, which is very valid, is that the city council has affordable housing is a big concern, so this basement unit will add some affordable housing in the area. Committee members, any further questions? Are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Palmer again. Sir, did you look at providing access to the basement from the rear yard where it wouldn't impact on either neighbor on either side in the side yard?
I did, and it just happens to pose a complication with the functionality of elements that are at grade. So on the west side, if I came in from the rear, it impacts certain things like openings for my rear yard, and also air conditioning unit and hydro. And on the on the east side, on the west side, it would impact a back walkout that I have. So there are elements there that I was just trying to stay clear of, and so that I didn't have to make it even more complicated.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any further questions? Are we ready for a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Don Taylor. As I've opined earlier, we don't really have a mandate or purview to deal with storm water drainage issues. I'm satisfied with the applicant's evidence that the location of the proposed stairway is preferable where he's proposed it from a functionality point of view. So my recommendation or motion would be to approve the application unconditionally.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Mr. Komaric, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion carries 4-1 with Mr. Palmer dissenting. And we have one more application. I don't know if Mr. Rose is available. Item number 15, 22 CRANLEIGH.
A very good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Okay,
First of all, thank you so much.
Yeah, Mr. Rose, just please hang on for 1 second while I just do a brief introduction of the application.
Yes.
And we do have one speaker in addition to you, the neighbor at 22. This is an application to construct a second story above the existing dwelling, a one-story rear addition, and a new front porch and a rear covered platform. And we have 3 variances, and we have supporting materials. We have concerns, and 1 letter of opposition. And Mr. Rose is the agent.
Once again, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for accommodating me to the end of your morning schedule. I appreciate that. The application before you represents an addition to an existing 1-story portion of this dwelling. To the west, it has an existing 2-story with the garage entrances there. We're proposing a 2nd floor addition and rear 1-story addition, and the setbacks are maintained. We're building on top of the existing wall. If you note, the setback of 1.5 meter complies, except the aggregate side yard setback is a little bit deficient from the required 3.91. But given the orientation of the dwelling relative to the west property line, it increases from front to back. So we do have 1.52 at the front, but are respecting the setback distance of 3.13 at the rear. So the aggregate is found 5.2 meters back from the front wall. We do attain the required aggregate side yard setback. The front addition in terms of front yard setback, it is a one-story foyer enclosure that provides access to the main entrance door of the dwelling. The dwelling to the west, the existing dwelling to the west, is a two-story, as is the dwelling to the east. In terms of the side yards, again, I emphasize that we have the aggregate at 5.2 meters further back. We do acknowledge that there is 2 letters from the neighbor, one at 22, which is the neighbor to the west.
Yep.
And I also have a letter of opposition from the neighbor from the rear,
Yep.
which I can address once we get to that.
Yeah, they're at 8 Swindon, and they wrote in a letter, and as well,
Yes.
the neighbor 22 who's here to speak has written in a letter as well. So what about the
I
rear?
should just
They're
have
concerned with
last
the rear?
comment.
Yeah.
Last comment related to the
Mhm.
area of the second floor deck off of the master bedroom. Maximum is 4 square meters. We've confined it to a 7.02 square meters, which I think is a reasonable minor variance to request.
Mhm. And is that off, that balcony is off a bedroom?
It's off a master bedroom. It is
Okay.
not off a living room. So the potential access is by the homeowner. Sit, take some sun, have a coffee. Not for entertainment purposes, surely. But I do want to note that we are providing the 1.5 meter high screening on the east and west sides to prevent any type of overlook to adjoining properties.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rosa. So we now have, we have the letter from 22. We're going to hear, I guess we do have that letter, so we'll let that neighbor make submissions. You'll have a chance to respond.
Hello?
Hello, is that Kathy
Hello?
Chico? Hello?
It is, and I don't live at number 22. I live at number 24.
Right, sorry,
If
okay.
the subject property is 22.
Right, the application is 24, so 22, so you're
Yes.
24. Yep, so you're right next door.
Right.
We have your
I
letter.
am indeed, yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, you have a right to make some submissions to us, so. go
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. I live at 24 Cranley. My name is Kathy Chaco. My intention today just was to reinforce and emphasize that which I've already submitted in my email. Can you hear me because I'm very echoey?
Yeah, we can hear you
Okay.
very clearly.
Okay. I indicated in my email, but I think it's worth repeating that I feel the addition of a 7 square meter platform is too big and it's unsightly, and I'm going to lose all the privacy that I now enjoy in my backyard. Now, to me, I'm not an expert, but to me, this is not a minor variance. I don't think it's well distanced. And I'm a little concerned that this platform might be extended. Don't know whether that's possible without reapplying.
No, it would not.
I think, okay, the proposed privacy fence on my side of this platform at 5 feet high, I think is only a benefit to the homeowner. It's certainly not a benefit to me. And I know this isn't technical, but I would like just to point out that I'm regularly, actively working in a mature perennial garden 3 seasons of the year. It's my hobby. It's good for my physical health, my mental health, not to mention that I share this garden space with friends and family. And I think over this past year, it's become even more important to me. And I realize the Committee of Adjustments is not particularly concerned with my physical and mental health, but I think it's still worth a mention. I would like some clarity about the variance requested between my property and number 22. I'm a little unclear as to why a variance is needed if in fact the footprint of the dwelling is not going to change. And I know this probably isn't also the jurisdiction of the Committee of Adjustments, but the construction process between my property.
Ma'am, we don't deal with construction. We realize that there's lots of
Right.
issues dealing with
I
construction,
appreciate.
but there's
I'm concerned about the narrowness as between my property and number 22. It is pretty narrow. Anyway, that's all I had to say,
Okay.
and thank you for the committee.
Right, so you're feeling that the 7 meter, he did mention it's going to be screened on both sides, but that they have the right to do a 4 meter one as of right. 7, you feel the difference
Right.
between 7 and 4 further impacts your privacy and other issues. In your quality of-
It certainly does. At this point, again, the space between number 24 and number 22 is pretty narrow.
Okay.
And that's my primary concern.
Okay.
But again, I don't exactly understand what they're asking in terms of variance, but in the side.
Well, he says here, variance 2, the minimum side yard setback is 1.5 with an aggregate side yard setback of 3.9. In this case, the aggregate is 3.18, and I believe Mr. Rosa went through to advise what the two add up to, but I can ask him to reiterate that and mention it again in his rebuttal. Exactly how
In
what
ordinary
the side yard is.
language.
The aggregate means the two together, but you want to know, you don't care about the other one between 22 and 20. You want to know the one between you and 24 and 22.
No,
So
there
have
is no 20. It's on a side, yeah.
Okay, well, the one on your side, you want to know what your side yard, not what the aggregate. So I'll have him.
I want to know, they're not punching the building out and making it larger towards my property?
We'll hear from Mr. Rosa can clarify that again. If that's your question.
Okay, I just want to know what it is that they're doing in the side yard. Thank you.
I'll have him clarify that in his rebuttal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Chayko before we move on? Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Rosa, can you please, in your rebuttal, deal with that issue, and specifically what the side yard is opposed to the aggregate, if you can just mention that again for Ms. Chayko's benefit.
I understand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, what we have to emphasize here is that the building or the second floor addition aligns with the existing exterior wall, the existing west exterior wall at number 22. It's important to know that the separation between walls at the front corner, total separation is 3.315 meters, well beyond 10 feet. And as the property, the building position setback distance is enhanced as we go to the rear, the total rear yard wall-to-wall separation is 5.281 meters. If we consider the distance to the proposed deck, whether it's 4 square meters or 7 square meters, the alignment of that deck on the west side, that separation adds another 0.6 meters. So we have a total separation of almost 5.9 meters between buildings there. Also, it's worthy to note that the side of number 24, the access along there is paved. So there's a little area for planting material here along between the dwellings. As well, it's worthy to note that at the rear, between the properties, along the property lines, the common property lines, there is a hedge, cedars, that are more or less in considering the height of the soffit. They are a height related to that soffit. So there is shadow being cast already by these existing cedars onto number 24. Two-story additions are allowed. I don't think we are providing a design that will be encroaching into or deterring from their enjoyment of their property at 24.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
That's
Rosa.
my.
Okay, does anyone have any questions, follow-up questions for either Mr. Rosa or the neighbor? So you indicated that the setback, again, between the properties, but that would obviously include the neighbor's setback on her side. Does her property comply, or she's also, you know, these are houses that were probably built before the bylaws, so you're building, like you said, in line the addition. But you explain what the spatial separation is between the two buildings. So any further questions, or is someone ready to make a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I find the proposal here is quite reasonable and appropriate. It's adding a second floor basically onto an existing footprint. I don't think the concerns about the rear deck are significant. This is a 75 square foot deck, which basically accommodates a small chair and small table and two chairs. Not much else. It's not going to be big enough to accommodate a social gathering and affect privacy. So my motion would be to approve the application on the grounds that it meets the 4 tests, and that motion would be unconditional.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Rosa. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And we stand adjourned now until for the lunch break until we start the afternoon 1 o'clock session, I guess at 2 o'clock. Okay, we'll stand adjourned until 2 o'clock while we break for lunch. Enjoy.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick note to everyone that's currently on WebEx for the 1 o'clock session, which has been pushed back until 2. I will begin the sound check at around 1:25 or 1:30, just to give everyone enough time to do something in the interim. But yeah, I will start the sound check for the next session at about 1:25 or 1:30. Thank you.